Talking about how it hasn't done that.
I've plugged my laptop today.
Do I unplug it?
Yeah.
That or hit it with a hammer.
I will wait until now.
No, hit cancel there.
Sure you want to stop recording?
No, hit cancel.
Cancel?
You want to pause recording?
Anyone that would like to consider
This is-
this? Go to a resident. Your name may be already on there.
No. Who the hell is this? Oh.
How do you make this thing bigger here?
No.
Okay, I'd like to call the select board meeting to order December 16th, 2024 at 5:16 PM. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none. Unless there, approve the bills for payment. The warrant.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 16th bill.
Do I have a second? Claire seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Pass this around for signature page.
On the back of this one, Brian.
Remember the best you know? Ah, there it is. Thank you, Eric. Mm. There you go. So we have our balance sheet. Lisa has provided us with the balance sheet, budget status report, and financial snapshot.
In the balance sheet, financial snapshot, now have the adjusting entries.
2024.
Here and then.
Okay. All right. Any questions on any of this? Claire?
On your financial?
Yeah.
No, I do not like any sources like a financial.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Lisa, for providing that. Do you have any? No, okay. At this point in time there, it's time for public comments. This is for future select board meetings there to take up. That is not on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
This isn't directly related to your question, but looks like some of our CDs are gonna be maturing
June.
in January. Are we gonna have a meeting in early January before the maturity date on those? I presume we will.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
When
already
were
asked for it to be on the next agenda.
Okay.
So, got my email.
All right, we have no public comment. Water Board, Andy, I think you can fill us in here,
Yeah, I
and
guess,
Lisa too.
Couple of quick comments. Our current contract with Aldrich and Elliott took us through final design, which of course we just received bids today, so. Final design is complete. The amendment you're looking at is to carry us through construction, and be for the construction services. And that got more, with all the funding we got, especially the USDA funding. There's a lot more requirements on the engineer than we had before, monitoring the Buy American provisions, a lot of other stuff that requires additional effort. USDA also requires that a resident project engineer be on site anytime any type of construction is going on. That was more than originally contemplated. Bottom line is, the budget that was put together, about 2 years ago now for construction services was $155,000. This amendment adds up to, I think it's $177,800. So there's an escalation factor because we're actually running almost a year behind our original schedule, mainly due to permitting. And then for the reasons I just explained, there's more effort required of the engineer now as a result of some of our funding. So I would recommend that the select board approve that.
Any other further discussion there from anyone? I'll just make mention here that I'm very pleased there with the way that the water board has been operating. And it's you guys have done a very good job in getting all this stuff put together, and then we'll try to continue on there with the good work.
I appreciate that, Carl. Just, I don't know if any of you had a chance to Zoom in, or actually Teams meeting for the bid openings day. Went very well. It's went the engineer, not to us. They opened it. There was quite a few attendees, and I thought it was,
Yeah, I didn't make that there. However, I had some people there that were on top of it, and they checked in with me right away to notify me.
great.
So, job well done on that. So, all right,
Make a
so,
motion to approve the amendment contemplated in the Aldrich and Elliott agreement that we've been presented with.
Second.
and Claire seconds that. Any further discussion? Would we, okay, I can go ahead and sign this, correct? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And it'll be the same as last time off. Go ahead and sign that. Either after the meeting or tomorrow. Okay. On to the next there. Thank you, Andy. Capital improvement plan, review the planning commission comments. So we did receive a letter or an email here from Michael Curtis, the chair of the planning commission. And it says the PC is in favor of the plan. I think everyone involved has done a good job. So of course, we were all hoping there that we would have had that there at our last informational meeting. However, we didn't. So we need to basically take action, either approving or rejecting the capital plan and budgets for the fiscal year 25-29 capital plan and budget.
Personally, having received nothing but positive feedback from the attendees at our public hearing and positive feedback from the planning commission, I would make a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 through 2029 capital plan and budgets.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Blair seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We had a wonderful turnout at that meeting. Okay, on to the next here. Public Works.
Well, first and foremost, we know, or some of you may or may not know that the big trucks in the repair shop right now, again, they got it running today. They're gonna do some more diagnostics on it as to basically why it went down. What I was told today, there was no fuel and low pressure. Low pressure fuel pump. So they do some more diagnostics on that.
I had an issue like that with my outboard 2 years ago.
Yeah, nothing catastrophic apparently, so that's a good thing, so
Okay.
hopefully the next couple of days we'll have that back.
We have any idea there what this is gonna run?
Just,
Okay,
I haven't talked to anybody
okay,
that high up.
all right.
Just,
So with any luck there, we'll get it back tomorrow or the day after.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
This week, yeah.
all right.
And,
Won't need it tomorrow, so.
No, we'll need it tomorrow there unless you're pushing water.
yeah,
Okay, anything else there, Tracy?
the assistant, I spoke with him and he's given his notice at his current job and he's got intentions to start here the 27th.
The 27th?
Next thing, I've been invited to the Shoreland Subcommittee's meeting on this Wednesday nights to basically stay in the loop of what's going on with the Pilots project. Hopefully we can speed and keep that moving forward.
Okay,
It's progress.
they'll probably address some of the other, I mean, the other one there up on Lakeview.
Yeah, I'll
and-
find out more information as to that was a little new to me.
I did speak to Tom Bristleton on that, and of course, that's a big riprap job or whatever on Pilots, and it's just because the bank is so steep and tall and whatever. But that's that's quite a
Lake-
project.
Lake-
The one on Lakeview, yes.
Yeah.
Pilots there is simpler, but
Yeah.
you know, but I think Tom Tom presented last meeting there, so there are some monies available and whatever, so yeah, that'd be great if you stay on top of
Yeah,
that too.
said last week I'll try to save all of this. All I can.
All right. Anything else, Tracy?
Happy customers so far.
Okay, I haven't heard anything, so, all right.
From the higher ups that pays.
All right, moving on. Treasurer Lisa, review of the library maintenance repairs expense line item.
Yes, you asked at the last meeting why they were over budget.
Yep.
They had a $1,200 invoice for having their heat pumps serviced.
Okay,
So with that, the impact fire, the plumbing, they also had an issue with the toilet was replaced.
okay,
Plumbing, which was almost $900, and then the black rock slate roof inspection was $500.
Okay.
So the improvements they're looking to do, whether it be the roof or the basement, they're looking to use surplus for that, not their capital fund.
so, and in their surplus,
Yeah, they have about 57.
57,463.04. Okay,
But I think we need to expense it from this maintenance repair line.
right,
Fund, so just transfer the funds.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, it is a maintenance / repair. I mean, I think this is a great time there to start categorizing these on the proper lines there and whatever, so, okay. All right, any other,
I haven't heard
Questions?
anything of what they've decided about the roof.
okay,
They've got all the quotes, the 2 quotes, so I haven't heard.
all right.
So
They have-
when they decide to move forward, we'll transfer the money from surplus into their.
Okay, and if they, and BlackRock was the one that they would apply the 500,
Right.
okay, and And I know you did send something out on that, but I can't.
So Split Rock was $2,000 a day. They recommended 2 days. They said it could take up to 5 days to do it all right, which was $10,000. And then Black Rock was like 5,000.
Okay. Well, then we will wait to hear back from the trustees. All right. Okay, select board, working budget fiscal year 25-26.
The last meeting also asked about the listers mapping line. And when I looked back, we under budgeted that line for the last 3 years. And I did reach out to CAI and they did confirm it was $5,700 a year. And this year, the line is for fiscal year 25, 6,300 because of the extra changes and corrections we had done. So, but the regular yearly cost is 5,700, and we've only been budgeting 4,900, so I did adjust that. 26.
So overall, if we don't touch anything here, overall, what are we looking at there for an increase in budget?
You want me to bring the budget up? Does that help?
Would you?
Yeah.
Because then we can take that 100,000 out of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, we haven't agreed on that,
Yeah,
so
let me see.
that was me playing around with numbers.
The total would be 1,314,132. All 4 departments. There's between 11.54%. For this year. 11.54.
5.4. Notice I like the lower numbers. Okay. So,
Do you want me to take out the, is it at the,
Oh,
is it
at
under
the
public works?
end,
Yeah.
no, if you go down to the end tab. and find- Yeah. There's the total town budget. To the right, yeah,
Oh, there's more. Gotcha.
there you go.
Okay, so
Yeah,
here,
you take out that, yeah, but there's a column fiscal year 26, 1.314.
okay,
Can you, put in under previous year's surplus to be applied for the general fund, if you put in 20 general fund,
general fund.
put in, 25,000. And then go to public works and put in 40 and see what happens,
6.
because we still have the contingency fund to deal with.
right.
Anyways, the only number we're waiting for is the county tax, but. Their budget didn't change very much, but I think that. We have to find out what the grand list coming at, it's percent. I think we figured out it's a percent. based on
Yeah, I
the
think,
list.
well, but my guesstimate was there it was gonna run us probably $1,500 more approximately. It's a real rough estimate, but because we added to the grand list, and just based on the other percentages there, so our county, on the county end there, that'd probably go up there about 1,500 from what they proposed, which, I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but they had proposed. It was just slightly less than last year, but now. We have to add in because our grand list went up. So, and it's all done on percentages, which I still don't totally agree with that. I guess they figure that it all evens out in the end, but unless all 5 towns are on the exact same year there as far as doing reappraisals, you're going to have some towns there that haven't had reappraisals there in 10 years. And you have other ones there, like Grand Isle's gonna be doing a reappraisal in 2 years. We're probably not gonna see ours until what, 5 years from now? Probably 5 years from now. So they have some kind of a formula there that they come up with there to take care of the county tax.
I looked on the PBR site today to see if I could come up with what the other grand list value this year
Yeah,
so far, but I couldn't find it.
okay.
They only have the CLAs for everybody.
And what the county had presented to us is we won't have their final number until, when did she say, January, yeah, so, and we already know that one of the training for the sheriff's department there, whatever, that's gone up 5,000, she said, yeah. So, so that wasn't in those figures that they had presented to us in last week. So, and thank you again, Lisa, for attending that. It was kind of eye-opening. So, anyway, all right, so going back to this. Does anybody have any other ideas here? I mean, by doing what Claire just had Corinne do here, now that drops us to a 6% increase. VT Digger? VT Digger had said there that a lot of towns are experiencing double-digit increases in their town budgets. Some of that, though, of course, is related to flooding. You know, we are the only county that didn't flood. You know, I just like the idea of trying to keep this number in check without giving too much of a, false hope there that next year will be the same. We have experienced, as we know, we've experienced, we've gone over budget in a few there. IT is one. My feeling on IT is that if it helps everyone out, cybersecurity, all that stuff, that it's important. People can access the website, they can access, quite a bit of information there without actually setting foot in this building, So, so I'd like to hear, anybody else want to chime in on this?
I think that given the inflationary pressures that everyone has experienced over the past few years, and how a fairly significant portion of our budget increase is due to factors that are mostly outside of our control, I think that a 6% increase on a year-over-year basis is something that is, I think, palatable. And I think it shows that we worked very hard to keep our budget in check. I think allocating $65,000 out of the general fund and public works reserves to soften it from 11 to 6 shows that we've listened to the taxpayers who expressed concerns about the increases year over year. Personally, I think I would be in favor of this more modest allocation of our surplus. 65,000 rather than, because it puts us in a position where if we do start to see a trend that our costs are coming down next year, which is hopeful, optimistic, maybe naive. Then perhaps we don't have to allocate as much out of our surpluses to the extent that we're still carrying them. I think I would support this proposal if this is what we went into our year end with, of course, having to wait for county tax numbers to come in beginning of January.
Okay, anyone else?
I agree with Harry. I think, people of the state, people of this town have been pushed enough, and if we can do anything to defray some of it. Well, I'm for that.
Okay. All right. So we don't need a motion on that there. We can't, well, we don't need a motion on that because we can't approve anything there until we get our county-wide. So. All right, so then have we pretty much dealt with fiscal year 26 budget changes?
So I have a question.
Yeah,
Claire actually pointed out the contingency reserve fund of 20%. So that number on that sheet is based on what we're asking, 20% of what we're asking from the taxpayers. On a sheet that I guess you're gonna review later on, this part to help you with the discussion for the warning. I took those numbers to be the total operating, 20% of the actual operating, which did include revenues. So those numbers are different. You follow me? So I guess we need to, one, decide what's the 20% gonna be on, what we're asking of the taxpayers or what our actual operating expenses will be.
If you could, and I know this is last minute, but if you could take us from what we're looking at on page 47 and the new 56.
So the new 56 is what I handed you.
Correct.
That is without the revenues, the non-tax revenue. So I took exactly what the expended, so this on page 56 is what the expenditures are. Without any revenues offsetting.
Without any revenue.
Without any revenues offsetting any expenses. So that's what this is. That's what that second sheet is. So I guess. What are we going to base that 20% on? What we're asking the taxpayers, which includes the non-tax revenues. Or what our actual expenditures are.
To cover emergencies in our operating costs, so, and in my mind, I would think it would come from the operating budget. Without the revenues,
Without the revenues.
because that's what you're trying to cover is
Yes, which is what I. did.
unforeseen operating expenses.
Yes,
I agree with Joe. I mean, you know, our projected non-tax revenues are simply an educated guess. They could be much higher, much lower. And so I think from the position of trying to make this fund,
And when you're considering the non-tax revenue, that would be the interest income and anything else?
yeah, the delinquent taxes that we collect. You know, it's the Parks and Rec program
Mhm.
fees, it's all those revenues at the top of the budget.
Right. And
That's-
so,
Very fluid and a hard target to hit each year.
So it
Yeah.
includes like the zoning permits, the, you know, the DRB application permits, that, those revenues. So in this number, this 20% number, it includes, it backs out all those revenues. In the second sheet, it's just the expenditures, that's why. the numbers are
so
off.
it's a difference of about $20,000 and I think overall, having the additional $20,000 in our contingency reserve fund is wise, and it's not gonna have a significant impact on our ability to fund the contingency reserve. And you know, if it turns out over time that holding 20% in that fund is something that we need to take back up, readjust, certainly can.
Okay, thank you, I'll fix that number. And that.
Okay. All right.
So
Anything else?
I guess just one. So the new page that you gave us says 282, 390, right?
282, 390, yep.
So
And
that's
then
fiscal year
our-
25, so you gotta. go
Right,
down
and so
here.
for 26, we're at 306, 862,
Yes.
and so we're looking at a difference still of about 20
24,
grand.
24,000.
Because in our warning, we've got 296, 510, and in this sheet, we've got 306, 862.
And there is the option to change the policy from 20% to 15%. We wanted to do that.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure we all understood the numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you.
So
both,
thank you for pointing it out,
thank you both very much.
Okay. All right, have we put that one to bed yet?
So,
Okay,
Are we in authority to leave it at 20% versus 15 or?
oh, that's what you're asking, Claire.
Right, or does it?
Well, I mean, I definitely want to hear some discussion on it. You know, I mean, the 20%. That we've recommended there, what VLCT, was the VLCT that recommended 16.8 or something like that. You know, they were recommending that.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see there's quite a difference between the 15 and the 20.
and it could be another number. It could be 17%.
It could be whatever we want, yeah. You know, so that delta there is about 70,000, so we're just being very simplistic there. We could drop that by about another 35,000 if we went to like 18%. 17.5% probably, so. I don't know, I want to hear from everyone, you know, what are their thoughts, and I'd like to definitely hear from you, Lisa, and Corinne, what you guys think about this as far as.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I think we're a fairly responsible community and board. And I think we shouldn't do any more than VLTC recommends. If they recommend 17.5, then we should do 17.5 as a max. And it's the first year, so see how it goes. But to do any more than what's recommended, I think would be wrong, because I don't think we have money problems in this town, if everybody agrees on that.
Do you remember what the LCT gave you as a percentage?
I don't.
That was like 16.8, but
Hey, what we've found is it's a little all over the board.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Some
they
are
were
10, some are
all,
50, some are 20,
Right,
some are-
right.
The chat said,
I don't remember. Yeah.
Um,
I tend not to trust my memory.
And I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
that depends on how fiscally responsible each town is. So, you know, if you got a town that really isn't doing well and they're not managing their money well, they're gonna ask for more money. Because they're dependent on that. Whereas this is an emergency fund, basically, only for things that are out of the norm. I mean, our capital plan is pretty tight. We know what our budget is. We know what it's gonna cost us each year. So we are strictly looking at possibility of emergencies. I could be wrong, but I don't think we need 20%.
Unforeseen circumstance.
Right. Thank you. That's a better way of putting it.
Well, I mean, even if we look at the 15%, you know, that's still almost $212,000. I think for fiscal year 26, it'd be 230,000. Versus 282 and 306. Well,
I don't recall our discussion at the meeting where we set it at 20.
we did,
Precisely.
I thought we did say.
We
that,
did,
Tony.
and I
We
think I
did.
recommended it,
Yeah,
but the more I've thought about it, like I said, everything I just said is what I've thought about.
Yeah.
um,
And it is as a policy right now, right?
Well, I mean, the policy is currently signed by the select board, says 10%. And when you motioned, I think, or agreed to change it to 20, I brought you a revised policy. And the discussion at the time was, well, the policy doesn't have a fund to manage, and if the voters vote in the fund, do we really need a policy? So let's wait till after we see what the voters do in March to review this policy. So I have a reminder in my calendar set up to bring that back to you in April.
okay, and we do have the monies there to cover that.
Yeah.
So what you're
So-
really trying to decide right now is what percentage. should
What
be in the
percentage should it
warning.
be?
Because the warning, the verbiage
Yeah,
states what the percentage will be.
Right.
And my computer's not responding.
It's right up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't bring it up on my screen to move it down to the,
Oh.
oh, it is down there. Okay, that's
Yeah.
lucky. I'll figure out my computer later. But shall the town establish a reserve fund to be maintained? And these are drafts for you to review, and if I'm headed in the right direction, I'll be sending them to Terrence.
Yeah.
So, the verbiage could definitely change.
I mean, I guess the question that I have, whether or not we're going to present 15 or 20 or whatever number we choose. What's, how are we going to treat the additional monies that are not going to be allocated to the contingency reserve fund?
The last time we discussed this, the thought was we would revert, maybe it was at the CIP meeting. It could be confusing conversations, but that we would review a balanced budget policy. So that in the future, we're looking at a very clear allocation of all amounts to the point where there may no longer be what we know of as surplus funds. So every year following an audit, if there's a surplus or a deficit, there's a policy that shows us how to handle those funds.
And would be all automatically allocated to the first year project in the CIP.
Well, all that has to be decided.
Well, right,
So,
but
like,
presuming
Yeah.
that those projects are gonna require funding by taxpayer dollars.
so that's
If
an
we are running an
option.
overage in that year, we can use it to,
Another option is to continue to fund the contingency fund so it stays at the percentage amount, because as you spend down, we have to have a plan for maintaining. Or another option is what we're doing this year with previous year surplus being applied to a budget.
so from an overall policy perspective, we don't have a driving set of documents that's gonna automate this process.
Correct.
And so we're still faced with a question, if we do reduce our established 20% contingency reserve fund to a number that's less than that, in terms of our warning and our presented budget, how are those monies going to be treated?
And this, yeah, exactly. It's a great point. And this is a opportunity when we're on the brink of some really substantial projects and spending down a lot of reserve, as well as some potential continued increases in uncertainty in the financial realm, to set aside a chunk so that maybe in the future, you don't have to reserve 20%. But you have the ability to reserve it. And say if you spend it down next year, but decide, well, we only need 15%, then you change the percentage amount rather than funding it. Am I making any sense?
mhm,
Yeah.
you are. Yeah.
Not
I
that I'm
mean,
advocating.
so
for that,
this
it's just
isn't,
another
I
angle.
mean, let's
It's-
put it this way. this isn't set in concrete. I mean, if we say this year 20%. But then next year. We say, okay, we take a look at our numbers there and whatever, and we say, okay, 15 there should be fine. And we can always change it.
We can, and if one of the projects on our capital improvement plan, because of an unforeseen circumstance, needs to have its repair, replacement, rehabilitation schedule move forward. And if we spend down some of the money in the capital reserve fund in order to achieve, I guess a faster paced project timeline, then, at that point, we can decide whether or not we want to allocate additional funds to the contingency reserve balance to bring it back up to 20, or if we're satisfied with a lower amount. I think either way, I'm not opposed to Joe's statement. I want to be very clear. I think that holding more money in a contingency reserve fund than is necessary, and affecting an increase in our overall budget and trickle-down effect is bumping people's tax bills up, is something as a board we should work to avoid.
And I have yet to confirm, because the next step is a lawyer review. If they vote the 20% and we decide we would rather do 15, it may have to go back before.
Go
the
back
voters.
before the voters, yes.
So there may not be as much flexibility there as we're all
And
contemplating.
so some potential language change to Article 16 may be, shall the town establish a reserve fund?
To be maintained at the policy level that you
Yeah,
guys can change.
shall a reserve fund to be called a contingency reserve for the purpose of an unanticipated operational emergency situations, and shall be funded with an initial deposit of 296,510 of general operating surplus at a level to be decided by the select board.
Did I miss something? Where did the 296 come from?
Oh, that's why I had included, this didn't come from Lisa. This,
Oh,
I
yeah.
had pulled up. I was looking for numbers for our first draft of the warning and went back to when we reviewed this. And I submitted it so you could see where I got the number. I think she's now updated it based on your conversation.
Right, so that number will be updated to reflect the changes, but if we say, shall the town establish a reserve fund? And then delete to be maintained at 20% of the annual operating budget. To be called a contingency reserve fund for the purpose of unanticipated operational emergency situations, that shall be funded with an initial deposit of 290, or whatever the number is from Lisa, right? What is that? 300 and
Would you leave it at 20?
20, it's 306,863.
306,863 of general operating surplus. 24 DSA 2804. Right? I think what we're doing there is approving the fund and the initial deposit, and then you might add a statement to the effect of, the
The statute requires everything be in a yes, no, and I'm not sure statements. Like the town report would be where ideally you'd explain the yes, no question on the ballot.
Yeah,
we
no,
can
that's
work
not
it
what
in.
I'm trying to figure out, a good place to put in some language that says, something to the effect of where the where the subsequent balance shall be determined by the select board, or the subsequent funding level shall be determined by the select board, something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we take out the 20%, I think we would really want to contemplate reenacting the policy, the contingency fund policy.
Right.
The thought process and the reason I included the 20% was because last discussion we had said,
It would create a permanent policy mandating a 20%.
and we would have
20%.
one less policy to maintain and review and update every year.
Right.
So.
And perhaps we eventually do convert to a permanent percentage-based contingent reserve fund. Contingency reserve fund, but kind of what I'm hearing from the board meeting is that we don't want to. Put
do
it
that
in
the first year.
stone right off the bat.
Yeah. That's a big number for the voters to swallow.
Well, so if we go back, well, now I'll chime in here. So if we go back and let's just say it's 15%. So 15% there, so for fiscal year 26 would be 230,146. I don't think. I mean, you're looking at $76,000 difference with the 15% versus 20%.
Right, I just, what happens with the $70,000? I mean, is it representing, I mean, those are already monies that have been collected.
Well, but we're also looking at taking this upcoming one there, we're taking 25,000 out of there, right? Out of this,
I think general.
out of the general here.
And then 40,000 out of
Right,
public works. So
55,000.
it's a
Right.
total of 65 that we're taking out of existing surplus.
Right,
And so if it's reducing our fiscal year 26. Monies to be collected by taxes, right? If that's the impact. And if it results in an additional $75,000. Reduction in our total operating costs. Then it would
I mean, that's up
potentially,
to you guys. You could take the whole surplus amount and apply
Right.
it to this year's
Right.
taxes.
well, right, but
And
that's
next
the
year,
question.
would be
So
like
is if
freaking
the
out.
75 that we're not, if we're not gonna put it in the contingency reserve fund. Is the thought that we apply that to offset the taxes? I'm,
right, yeah. That's always,
or are we still keeping that on the books and allocating that to some of the projects in the CIP?
I would imagine it would be kept, well, again, it's up to you guys, but I would imagine it'd be kept on the books, but it would just be the no-named surplus that we're currently trying to navigate the CIP and the policies to mitigate having a surplus, because it's hard for voters to identify in the reports. And they keep asking, why are you holding on to these funds? If you can clearly show through policy and the CIP.
That they're
There's so much,
necessary funds.
yeah,
but if we move along there with the CIP, I mean,
well, you chose not to set up a capital reserve fund, so there's no one central pot in the town for capital reserve projects. Each department, because they were already doing internal fiscal planning, didn't
Mhm.
want to lose their department.
right,
I'm like really heavily into treasurer territory here, so
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
but and so we kept those line items allocated by department. So I suppose you could say, well, these were the 3 projects this year. We're gonna give water an extra 50,000. We're gonna give. I hadn't thought of it, but
Under your line of thinking, Harry, I think it's under your line of thinking. If it doesn't get voted in, that whole amount stays as a surplus.
Yeah, as a quote unquote surplus and if that is the case. Then we're essentially in the same position we're in now. We have the money on the books. This isn't about what we need to raise next year. It's just about how we account for that money internally and which projects that money is basically earmarked for. And presuming that our CIP has got prioritized projects, when those projects come up, we will be looking to that general fund that includes quote unquote surplus. Even though I think that word is kind of a misnomer, right? This is
Right.
part of our future budgeting. It's our bank, right? This is the reason we're holding this money is to avoid substantial borrowing costs.
Right.
And delay with our projects to the extent that they need to be done immediately, right? We have. And the projects that we're funding over time, so. I don't care whether the number in the contingency reserve fund is, I shouldn't say I don't care. I wonder, I guess, and I sounded like a broken record. What is the positive impact versus reducing the number in the contingency reserve fund versus increasing it? And I guess from my perspective, those monies are gonna be used at some point. Or,
Well, one of the next questions on the warning, shall the town fund the North Station Building Replacement Fund? We've created this fund, so now if we want to put funds into it, it has to be voted on. So this is, you've wandered into our next question.
right,
Um,
so if we wanna take $75,000 out of the contingency reserve fund, we could allocate it very easily to the public works. Surplus, I mean, to the public works, replacement fund.
Always a public works. Town fund,
I mean, I'm sorry, the North Station from the public works surplus.
And it doesn't have to be public works surplus, it can be,
yeah, well, that's,
Yeah.
broad,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I don't know where we got public works in there. Just because we're already taking 40 out of it.
so partly what I did when doing this draft was go through what was in last year's warning. And
Yeah.
last year we had voted to
To separate.
and separate them and fund it.
Yeah.
And now that it's funded, if you want to put more funds in it, the voters have to approve it. So this would be just the opportunity, so I put this in here to just ask. Does the select board want to use any of the surplus to fund the North Station Building Replacement Fund? I know through discussion that there has been talk of using some of the surplus, so the more transparent way to do that is to have it go into the fund so the voters know. They can look quickly at the financial snapshot and, okay, there was 800,000 in it, now there's 900,000 in it. And again, they know what our future plans are for the money that we're holding on to. It isn't just surplus.
Well, there's what, 794,000, say, we do want to just round it to 800. We really don't know. We're still working on this. We are making some inroads on the replacement of these buildings. I just see there that the North Station Building Replacement Fund. I thought that took. That is the fire. You know,
No, it's called the fire.
Yeah, there's a fire, there's a North Hero or fire station, right? North Hero
Fire station.
Yeah.
We created two funds.
Well,
One for the fire
and that's an
station.
option too. We could easily change North Station Building Replacement to the fire. Whatever, let's figure out the name. But yeah, we separated them out. North Station Building Replacement. It was easier. It was already a very complicated wording of the different ballot items, so we decided not to change the name in addition to it all. It was just going to be left for Public Works, and we created a fire department reserve fund.
Yeah, I thought it was the opposite way around. The public works got their own, and that the fire department then was taking, because there was some monies in the,
In the fund.
in the fund that
They
the,
did, but it was like 20 grand
It was
or
like
Yeah.
40, yeah.
40 grand. I mean, it was a
They
relatively
did,
small number.
that went, and I think, isn't there an appropriation, give them another 10 this year for that, for the fire station fund?
correct. Correct. So that's where I'm just a little confused with this there, because it's North Station Building Replacement Fund. I mean, I don't,
That is now for the garage.
We were stuck with that name because the voters voted on it. We could put that on here. And then we'd have we can ask them to change the name of the fund.
okay, so we changed, so that is Public Works.
Yeah, North Station Building Replacement is Public Works, and then the North Euro Volunteer Firefighters Association is for the firehouse replacement.
Okay, all right, okay. I just had that a little backwards. Okay,
And I keep getting notices that my internet's unstable, and I think Tim has tried to talk more than once, and I don't think our connection's that great.
Tim, have you been trying to talk?
Nope, I have been trying to figure out this discussion and, I think it's, my understanding is that we're gonna establish a reserve fund. Now, for this budget, we don't have to establish, the only thing we have to establish is, what percentage of the budget we want to go in that fund. Now, the 296, if that's what it's at right now, the 296 would put us above a 20% contribution. Am I correct so far?
Well, no, because we handed out a different flyer that I don't think you have access to. Let me see if I can
Oh, okay, okay.
updated the numbers.
It's right around 300,000 for fiscal year
Okay.
20.
So to have a reserve fund this year wouldn't require any additional monies. It would mean moving monies into that reserve fund.
Right.
And do we need to set a rate, a percentage now? When we look at this again next year, if we've had to tap that fund, it might be a higher percentage. If we haven't, it might be a lower percentage to keep it at the, whatever level we want to keep it at. And this is a good test. If I'm following this, that means the discussion on the budget, presentation night, maybe somebody will be able to follow it. But I think it's simple if we're just moving surplus into there and we're calling it a reserve fund. And then next year we look at how much we have to contribute to keep it at the level we want. So I'm agreeing with Joe that the 15% level is sounding good to me, since the other committees, the other departments have set, have planned for that. Am I making any sense?
Yes, Tim.
Two,
So can this ballot item just be to establish a reserve fund, and we can set a amount to put in there?
well, that's what we're trying to come up with though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so if it's,
The 20% would be 282. Which is close to the 296. I mean, we'd be putting more than 20%. What would happen to if we put in 15%, which on my paper showed 211? What would happen to the other
well,
85?
that's fiscal year 25,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
So 15% there, that's 211, 790, 250.
Yep.
Okay,
And in the on the and we have 296 in that article. So what if we made that article the 211?
Well,
the-
211 is FY 25, and
Yeah.
Right,
we'd want it to be FY 26, which is 230, 146.
Oh, okay.
And you don't have those numbers. if
Yeah,
you're at The projected fiscal year 26, the 15% is at 231,47, and the 20% is at 306,862.
oh, okay. I guess I'm wondering, why don't we decide what we want to move in there? That wouldn't be any additional cost to um have money in that fund. And then this could be a yearly decision about what we have to of what we need to, to keep that fund at the level we want.
And it probably would increase, not the percentage, but the number would increase every year because the budget, even if it's at
Yes,
2%,
yeah.
will still
yeah.
increase.
And with any luck, we wouldn't be spending significant parts of that fund.
And the contingency, again, if you read it, it's for, where is it? Operate unanticipated operational emergency situations. It really,
Savings account, right? It's transferred money, basically, savings account.
Well, like, so this year, our IT vendor,
Mhm.
they pulled the rug out from under us.
Right.
We're looking at a
right,
50% increase in IT costs for half the year.
yeah,
That's unanticipated operational
Right. Yeah.
expenses.
necessarily for a capital expense.
So I could see something like that happening almost every year, and so then every year you're left with the discussion of how do we bring it back up to the level we want? Ideally without,
That's where that percentage would come in.
right,
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yes.
and also too, I think the result of these changes that we're making from a capital improvement planning perspective and the capital reserve funding perspective are going to be informed and connected by an overall policy change, that would create a very clear instruction about how to quote, balance our budget on an annual basis with these shortfalls, whether anticipated or not. And from my perspective at this point, if the board is pleased with the 15% contingency reserve fund, I have no objection to that. I think the main question that's going to be in front of us is whether or not we are establishing a permanent percentage-based fund that will not need to be voted on and on an annual basis, or whether or not we are interested at the front end at this particular juncture and funding the contingency reserve fund with a dollar amount of our existing quote unquote surplus. Seeing where the chips fall next year, and then making a decision about whether or not we want to have a permanent percentage-based fund that we are comfortable with after having had some time to work under this new regime that we presented to voters for kind of a more a long view. And either way, I could be convinced, but that's basically the purpose of my questions, as inartfully as I may have asked them. Whether or not it's 230 or 300, it's not going to change our tax rate for next year unless we take a second step of trying to take that savings, quote unquote, that we are no longer allocating to this fund and spending down our rate.
I'm spending it down, yep, that's correct.
So from an overall tax savings perspective, it would require not only reducing the allocation to the capital reserve fund, but additional allocation among our other budget items if we're going to try and reduce the tax rate for the next year. And so I don't have an objection either way to 15 or 20%, but I think the establishment of this fund is very important.
Correct.
As long as we have some leeway to be able to change that percentage, if we notice there that 15%, if we go with 15, let's just say. That we have the ability to,
Maybe,
I guess maybe we just bring that back to the voters again there and just say, okay, we'd like to change it to 20%.
Right, I mean, the
we-
language, sorry to interrupt, Carl,
No, no, go
that
ahead.
was the language that I proposed up there, the language change. We could say 231.46, which represents about, or represents approximately 15% of our fiscal year 26 operating budget,
Right,
right? So we can explain to the voters how we came up with that number. And so they understand what the reserve fund is for. And if they approve it, we have a funded contingency reserve fund. And if we like that number, the 15% number, then we can move to make it permanent on kind of an annual funding basis by way of policy introduction.
yeah,
And we could do that during our, you know, our next, you know, we could do that in the beginning of 26, if we felt that that was a number that we were all happy with. I think that builds in flexibility.
Yeah.
If we vote on a percentage-based contingent reserve policy in March, whether it's 15 or 20%, it becomes a policy that would need to be changed by way of voter approval.
okay.
Mm.
Well, I just,
The policy wouldn't need voter approval.
The percentage of the fund would.
the percentage would need approval.
If the voters approve a 20% contingency fund,
If we put 20% in this,
right?
Okay.
That's kind of the
Or-
point.
so if
Or
we
you-
leave it the way it's worded now, you guys can have a policy that the select board gets to set that runs alongside this.
Right. And if we want to bring the voters in and have the voters establish a percentage-based fund that is inflexible from the select board's position, then we would put that on the warning, and it would become something that the voters would need to agree to modify in the future.
or we could set up what our basis is for our contingency fund and then have something, some verbiage as to each year. It'll be based on no more than a 20% to get us back up to our level. You know what I'm saying? We establish it and then each year we just know we were not gonna go over 20%. And to get back to, say, we set it at 300,000.
Well, it's gonna be a percentage of the operating budget, so. I don't necessarily foresee any of our operating budgets here, if I look at this stuff there, that they're gonna be going down.
No,
So.
And
it's
I
a
think
per-
too, I'll let you finish.
No, it's just, it's that percentage, so, I mean, I wanna I would like. The board to have some flexibility here, if we don't feel. That the 15% is enough. We need to go to 20. You know, that there is some flexibility here, even if we have to go back to the voters and saying, look, these are our reasons why the 15 isn't. It isn't gonna really cover us, but it is a percentage of the operating budget, so. I'm not sure whether or not we would ever have to necessarily change that. Unless something really big happens there that totally unexpected, and that's what this is kind of here for.
Mhm.
I would feel comfortable with the 15%. And then, you know, we're making a guess right now, and that seems like a reasonable amount of money. If it turns out that we were completely wrong, then we go back and we say, we were wrong, we need 20%, or, you know, 18, whatever. But I don't want to, I am kind of reluctant to hit with a larger percentage now and having to explain a larger percentage to voters.
Well, I hear you loud and clear.
Mm.
I think I mean, I can go any way on this, but if I had to lean one way there, then I'd say there that that I would lean towards the 15%.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are two ways to do it. Do the 15 and maybe we have to go back and later and say we were wrong. We need 20, or do the 20 and go back later and say we were wrong. We only need the 15. I mean, it's you know, it's we're trying to establish what rate we need now. And the only thing that I think will help us with that is the experience with it.
Yeah.
I think we're all pretty much in agreement though on 15%,
I
so.
mean, 15% is fine, and the question that remains is whether or not it's gonna be 15% in the warning, or we are just going to calculate what 15% is and ask to fund the budget with that number. I think that's.
Well, I kinda
Hearing Carl, I guess, I would agree with Carl that having some flexibility at the select board level to modify this without having to go to the voters every time we'd like to do it, I think is important when we're trying out a new system. And I guess in that vein, I'll make a motion that that the Article 16 shall read, shall the town establish a reserve fund to be called the contingency reserve fund for the purpose of an unanticipated operational emergency situations that shall be funded with an initial deposit of $230,146, which represents approximately 15% of our fiscal year 2026 operating budget. Out of general operating surplus pursuant to 24 VSA 2804.
I like that.
I like
All
it
right,
too.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, who wants that one?
Yeah.
Corinne, take your pick.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you all there. I know that was grueling. But that was a very good discussion. Okay.
Article 17? We got 17, 18, and 19. They're all, everything in italics is up for discussion.
All right, so now we have, shall the town fund the North Station Building Replacement Fund with monies from Public Works surplus for the purpose of replacing and improving the town garage.
And if this is something you guys had no interest in, I can just delete it.
I would recommend that the savings that we, or the reduction in the contingency reserve fund is allocated to the building replacement fund, because that building will cost money. It's money that we are spending relatively soon. So I would make a motion that Article 17 states, shall the town fund the North Station Building Replacement Fund with $70,000 operating surplus for the purpose of, yes, there we go. Because then we're not yanking more from Public Works, and the $70,000 that we had contemplated in Article 16 is being reallocated for that project.
Is that a motion? What?
I'd like to make a comment on that.
Yeah,
So the savings that you just mentioned is the 15 to 20, but that's all of the departments, not just Public Works.
Yeah, for the general operating surplus.
out of the general fund.
It's out of our general fund surplus, so, all of those monies are kind of in the same pool. And if $70,000 of those monies were gonna go to our contingency reserve fund and they no longer are.
So that doesn't leave you any surplus to put towards the taxes.
It does,
Yeah,
Well, so if we go back there, let's just,
$8,000.
right,
We're gonna
let,
take 230 and 70, you only have 308 in previous.
right.
yeah.
So
Your
let's
surplus.
go back there and look at the highway fund. Claire, you ran some numbers on this too, correct? Right now, it's at $189,909.54. Which we're looking at taking 40 out of that. Correct?
Towards taxes.
Towards, yeah,
Okay.
so we're looking at taking 40 out of that, so there's 149, but now Claire, you had some other numbers there that you would come up with.
right, but I did it before, page 56, and what I had was, the contingency reserve is at about 80,000 for the highway fund. And,
Oh, okay, you did that,
right,
Okay.
and then what was left, and it was like, you didn't wanna expend the whole amount.
right,
So 40,000 seemed to make sense to me.
okay. Well, there's 40, well, that would, let's say there, that leaves us with 149. So if we took the 70 out of that, that would leave us
80 grand.
approximately 79, yeah. Um. And we know there that we have to, well, we've got some other items here that we have to get picked up here as far as truck repair. We do have a new employee coming on board here.
And don't forget, we'll have 230,146 in the contingency reserve fund.
Correct,
So it's not as if looking at these lower numbers, which is what we're not used to, puts us in a precarious position in terms of the money available to the town to pay for these unforeseen expenses,
Right,
right?
right.
So if we're spending these balances down a little bit when we're doing this kind of work and we are near zero surpluses, we're doing exactly what we're setting out to do.
Right.
So our CIP and the contingency reserve fund should be absorbing almost all of what we're looking at in our surpluses, right? So we're looking at, 700,000, whatever it is. And if we can allocate that appropriately across these funds that we're setting up, then I think.
And I think that's why library wants to spend down their surplus. They get this.
Right,
The
so
idea
if we
is to-
spend down
yeah.
the surplus in this, so if it's $70,000, and I would take a friendly amendment from Claire. Here to have Article 17 not from general operating surplus, but from highway fund surplus. That puts us with, 79 grand left over in there.
well,
And we've got an additional $70,000 that will likely be spent on the Public Works garage.
correct,
Yep.
So
Sounds good.
we've got a friendly amendment to my motion.
okay. Do we have a second to your motion though? We have a friendly amendment, and was that a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Claire will second it. Corinne, do you have that all straight?
Yeah,
Does it
I'm
all
looking
look
at the
good?
treasurer and getting the nod. So,
Makes sense.
but yeah,
Made total sense?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then I'll call for a vote unless there's, Tim, you wanna have any further discussion on
Nope,
this?
nope, I think that's
Okay,
fine.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? All motion carries. Okay. And then we have,
so I added 18 after reading the last library board minutes where they discussed And they clearly stated that they wanted to move some of their surplus to the library capital fund. But I haven't, we haven't connected with them
They have a number on
on the
that yet?
numbers.
Okay,
But is that anything anyone here has an issue with? If they
No.
come up with a number, I can just plug it in?
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, they've got capital improvements, some significant ones that are on the way. You know, Lisa just gave us that good update, and so they wanna move some of the money into there to pay for that stuff. We don't have to raise taxes for it, great.
okay, so 19, shall the voters authorize the select board pursuant to 24 VSA 1061B to convey the 1.66 acre vacant parcel of land on Station Road to James O'Neill for $5,000, provided an easement deed for the municipal main water is executed at the time of sale. So we have discussed this earlier there, whatever, this is a number there, Jim did go with the higher, with the so-called higher, value, that we had received there from Caldwell Banker, I believe. It's not a buildable lot, so, in order to convey any town property, though, we need to have, a vote from the voters.
I've got
So,
no comments on 19. I think it's fine the way it is.
This is the
okay,
one I really want to
agree.
have Tarrant review, though. That this is, yeah.
um,
So it might
okay.
come back to you, but this is the start.
Yeah, but from the general perspective, I think, O'Neill has made an offer to purchase for 5,000. We have agreed to have his offer reviewed by the voters. And the town's interests that need to be preserved in this parcel are unfettered and continued access to the municipal water supply that runs through that property. And as long as voters agree with all of those things, great.
Okay.
If they don't, they don't.
Now, in other discussions that I had with Corinne and Lisa, if you take a look at our budget there, we have approximately $70,000 for these organizations.
Mhm.
And the way that it is there, when a request comes in to us, we put it on the ballot. As you can see here, like Northwest Unit for Special Investigations, Agewell. Those are on there because they did not get the monies last year, was it?
Yeah, the two on the bottom that are, our policy says that you have to be voted on every year if you're 2,000 or more. 13 and 14 are, because we have a sunset clause. If you fall off for 1 year, you have to be voted on to get back.
Okay,
Mm.
so my question there, or what I want to just throw out there to the board is because once this gets approved, if they continue to, it goes right away into the budget. Once it's approved, it's in the budget. And if they're requesting those funds every single year, we are not necessarily, or the voters are not necessarily voting on that every single year. And so my thing was there is not to necessarily just hand the money out, but to put a bit of a more responsibility there on these organizations there that they just don't get their money, by just asking for it. And I'd just like to have some comment from the board, what their feelings are on that, I mean, then hell, we'll be up to what, 27, on there, so, but, or if there's a better way there to present that to the voters, I'm not sure.
Are you asking that they should have a contract?
I'm not saying a contract, I guess, the only time it goes on the budget, I believe they're like, if they go for an increase too. correct?
So what, everything you're referring to is how our current appropriation policy is written.
Yeah.
We could update the policies, and there's lots of different modalities for requesting money from the town. So you could just get rid of the policy, and then people would have to revert to the statutory requirements of getting 5% of the voters to fill out a petition and get on the ballot. And some towns really like that because it's puts the burden of responsibility on the organization, and you're not likely to do that probably for $310. The negative of that is that you end up with at least twice as many ballot items. So you have a much longer ballot, more expensive programming for the tabulator. Voters have more to read and kind of navigate through when they're voting. From Carl's perspective, though, then the voters are completely
In the
given,
know.
given the discretion and the transparency.
I mean, and that's provided there that, you know, for those that it's spelled out in the budget. Okay, and in the town report, I mean, it shows where those monies are going.
And that's one option. You can also just tweak the policy. You could tweak it so that the lump sum shows. You could change the amounts. You know, it's been a number of years, maybe 2,000 is a, you know, too low of a threshold now, or too high, whatever. Also, you could, some towns, I believe what they do is they take everything under a certain amount and lump it together and still have it on the ballot. So it's not automatically in the budget, but you don't have all the little ones on there individually.
So it's just a lump sum
Yeah, so there would be a line item there that says, do we approve $70,000 for social appropriations to various entities?
that are listed in the
Yeah,
town report.
something like that. We'd have to. So unless you're considering these changes for this year and this appropriation, this is probably something we should think about and bring back up in April as a policy review.
So if we can look at the elephant in the room here, number 8, that is the very large one.
And number 6.
And number 6, yes. And since they are requesting those amounts, we have to stick with those amounts.
No, not at all.
So
You
We
guys
can-
could write back, we've decided to put on the ballot for $12,000.
And is there, if you do that, is there something else? Does that unravel something else? Like a
No.
different policy, a different,
No, I'd want to pull up the policy because, I think we may have, that ship may have sailed. I think the way the policy reads, you review in October. And if you
Mhm.
have concerns, you're supposed to send them something in writing, and then they get a chance to kind of counter offer.
yeah,
And then at that point, and that's just why you start in October, because if you reject and they counter offer, they still have time then to go and get a petition.
Yeah.
And still have their right through statute to try and get it on the ballot for the amount they want. So going to the select board is the easiest, but you guys have full discretion over that. If they don't like what you say, then they have to go get a petition.
so that's a heads up for next year.
Yeah, because
So I think it does make sense for us to take a look at this appropriations policy.
Mhm.
And if the ship has sailed for this budget cycle, then let's just take it up in April, and any changes that we wish to deploy, we need to make sure it's done well in advance of the October deadline. That's part of our current policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Totally agree.
And then
That's
perhaps
the question.
I know that the fire department will be represented here. Town meeting or the informational meeting, which also covers, I believe, GICMA. We may want to reach on out to these other organizations here, Grand Isle Rescue, that they have somebody to answer questions there. Partners, you know, the PBRA. And I'm sure that they'll be represented here. But I don't believe that Grand Isle Rescue last year was represented.
And the other thing that we need to keep in mind for next year is part of our, responsibility is to provide the taxpayers with safety. And so you do need Grand Isle Rescue, you do need the fire department. And if the voters don't approve it, don't approve the, 36,000 and 30,000, we still have to provide safety to the taxpayers.
Right, I think that's why we've changed the line item. For, at least in part, why we changed it for the Grand Isle County Sheriff's Department.
And that's a contract.
Yeah,
And that would be number, so that's how it read last year, although this is this year's number. And I put that in there so that you could approve taking it out. Or amend it to read, shall the voters authorize the select board to enter a contract?
right. So, you know, I'd be. I would be in favor of removing it. This is a contract. Service, I think the. Select board is well equipped to make contract decisions. And I think the select board is well equipped to deal with vendors who are not meeting obligations under any contract. Whether it's with the sheriff's department or a vendor of a different kind.
I'm in agreement with that.
Yep.
Okay, and we don't need a motion, we will, when this gets officially approved, it'll be the approving everything, the final draw.
Yeah,
Okay. Moving along there, we have to confirm a date and time for an informational meeting. That you have that in front of you.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to not do it the Monday before town meeting, which is March 3rd at 7 PM. It coincides with your regularly scheduled meeting, so you'd be meeting at 5:15 and then taking a break and then having town meeting at 7.
I'll make such a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Joe seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Town report, dedication and article of interest.
This is just, well, for the dedication, we don't have, any nominations yet this year. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. We don't have to get into discussion if we want it to be surprise. But we're still looking for ideas. And the article of interest, Lisa and I've reached out to Robert Arnett to ask him to kind of put something together about what he does for animal control. And maybe have some reminders in there about registering your dogs. So we've been working with him and can't wait to see how that comes together. Tim has put us in touch with Lisa, is it Kaju?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a graphic designer and she's agreed to kind of organize the photos for us,
Okay.
so.
Good.
So please let me know if you have any dedication ideas.
Okay. All right, we already took care of this annual meeting warning draft, right?
Yes,
Select board town report draft.
yeah, so there was a draft in your packet. I didn't give Lisa a whole lot of time to review. She's been very busy.
Yeah.
Um,
I just have one typo on that, which is the third paragraph about 2/3 down and return it to the grant list. Shouldn't that be grand list?
it should. I don't have it pulled up, let me. I can't remember where I saved it. Yep, that should be grand. But Lisa suggested, and I liked the idea that, and, town office restructure. I talked about the facilitation of the trench or of treasurer duties, but didn't bring up the creation of the, select board executive assistant position. That there should just be a sentence in there.
Say that again?
And the town office restructure bullet.
Yeah.
I talk about the transfer of the treasurer position.
Yeah.
But I should perhaps add a sentence about the creation of the select board executive assistant.
Agreed.
Yep,
Those are all my comments on that.
I have one ready.
thank you, Corinne, for putting this together.
I think this year I will add signature lines at the end. Maybe at the next, in January, we could,
Oh.
Going to do what?
signature lines.
Oh,
You guys want to sign it? The boards are kind of mixed historically. They sign it, but as we've gotten more electronic. So I guess I said that wrong. Would you like to have your signatures at the end of the report
for
or
sure.
just have me type them out?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, contingency fund there, we dealt with that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so meeting schedule. Oh, my goodness, these, the select board get these all.
Busy time of year for you guys.
Wow. Wow. Uh. I don't think I have a problem there with any of these dates here to keep them, but, totally up to the rest of the board.
I'm good.
I'm fine with meeting on those days.
Claire,
Oh, I could be fine.
okay, Claire's fine. Harry,
I
I know it's a little far out.
don't know.
Okay,
I'm up in the air.
okay. All right,
So our next meeting is when?
March 3rd.
January 6th.
Okay, so we moved it to January 6th.
No, that is the next
That
regular
is
schedule.
the next meeting.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
in the wrong year.
She's.
I'm sorry.
We're looking at the second,
All right,
so the second meeting in January,
okay.
Would be the 20th.
would be the 20th. And then we have on the 3rd, February 3rd is our first one in February, correct?
Yep.
And then the thing would be on President's Day there on the 17th. And of course, now we're getting close to. Well, let's see, we got a whole bunch to go with, but right now there. We'll have, I believe we'll have a quorum, and we can discuss this as we get a little bit closer here too. So. Okay. Correspondence,
Schedule the annual BCA meeting.
wow.
We have, the last 2 years, we've met at the beginning of the year and gone through the BCA checklist to mitigate needing to meet prior to every election, which is especially nice and even numbered year, so maybe not as pressing next year, but we will have to meet before the March election to approve items. Last year, we met the beginning of January, so that's why this is on here. I don't know if you wanted to coordinate that with the January 6th or wait, since we've decided to meet on the 20th.
Yeah, I like the 20th.
Okay.
If that'll work for the rest of the BCA,
I like to go to you guys first because if anything, if I've got you, I've got a quorum,
yeah,
and then I'll invite them around.
dinner included, what?
If you're okay with
BCA,
more back-to-back
January
meetings,
20th?
Yeah,
or if you
January
could- We
20th.
could schedule a special meeting.
I'm good with all that.
Okay, so we'll do January 20th and I'll invite the
I
BCA.
wonder if it's possible if we just add it as part of the agenda item on our select board meeting as
It's,
the final agenda.
We could, it's technically a separate meeting, because the JPs are members.
Right.
And they'll be at least, so I would think that at the very least, we'd have to recess the select board. Or.
Well,
close-
right, no,
yeah,
I'm just
but-
saying from a timing perspective, because
You can
sometimes we
plug
schedule a
right
meeting
into
at
the-
5:15 and then we schedule one at 7.
Right,
And then the 5:15 meeting ends at 6.
Well, I
Well,
can also coordinate with Carl, so we could still have our regular meeting at 5:15. And we could schedule BCA at 6, and if we aren't done, we can recess, do the BCA. Roll back into the select board, or we can just control what's
Or
on
just
the
make a-
agenda.
make the select board meeting there, end at 6,
Mhm.
Yeah,
give it a light load.
Yeah, I mean, we have control over what was
Yep.
on the agenda.
I like that.
I'll make a motion that the BCA meeting is scheduled for January 20th at 6 PM.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so. All right, this is Vermont 250th Town Resolution Reminder Letter. When is our 250th there? There seemed to be some issue there as far as.
Yeah, last time this came up, we couldn't do
Couldn't decide
it.
there what year it was.
We sent it to our town historian, and we've not heard back yet.
No. So, yeah, so I don't know. Well, we just, I don't think it's for a couple of years anyway. So,
I mean, what the state is trying to do here is get all the towns, I think, to celebrate the state 250th.
oh, the
I'm
state
not too
250th.
The
Well,
way it's worded is odd, though. It's,
It says, yeah,
I don't know if we want to be spending a whole bunch of money on this stuff.
how do we celebrate here? Adopted a resolution to be part of the anniversary commemoration. We join a commission. Build awareness of the important role of Vermont and our town. Their histories. If we are waiting to hear back from the town historian about whether or not they are willing to be engaged as part of this commission and share meaningful insights about,
they're not.
okay.
This will be the third time they've sent this to us. I
Yeah.
don't think they're getting the plan they hoped for.
Well,
okay,
no,
well, why don't we just move that one along?
it
Okay.
was noted.
Yep, it's SB reviewed.
All right, 2025 passive renewal invoice letter. So this goes into effect January 1st, 2025. For quarterly billing, has moved to quarterly billing.
And normally, this doesn't come through to you all, but it is a fairly sizable amount. And as budgets get tighter, I thought, and there's a lot of interesting information in there. It's really just FYI, keep you in the loop of some of what.
there's this rand a year for passage,
Yes,
37.
also, and one other reason. Choose this year to bring it to you is the last time we had, actually, I'm forgetting the series of events that led to this conversation. But it was suggested that at some point we kind of have an insurance audit. VLCT has seen in the last couple of years, primarily because of the flooding, that most of the towns are severely underassessed. And then when it comes time to actually pay up, they're struggling with their underwriters. And so they're suggesting towns, and I have no idea the last time we did a thorough overview. It shouldn't be that difficult because we just did VCIP and we have an inventory. But for something like this building, which is brand new for the town, there are certain things specific to insurance that could be helpful to review as a select board. Like, do we want this insured for historical replacement value? Or do we want it insured for its use? only type of questions.
When the CIP was meeting and you did the inventory, what did you allocate? For value?
It was on the insurance.
Yeah, well,
Well,
yeah, and the
that's
insurance is based on the assessment, so it's kind of circular, like a lister's assessors, and it's been a long time since those numbers were really reviewed. And so what some towns will do is actually hire somebody to, and some towns just continue to use their assessors.
5 years, we'll have a new number,
And
right?
then 5 years, yes, and that is an option, but this is currently on my list, I think, for June.
Okay.
So, but a little priming of the phone.
Okay. All right,
And just so you're aware, Carl, we have
Yep.
Frank Spalding on Zoom.
Frank is on?
Yeah, Frank is on.
I don't see Frank.
I have Frank. Frank, are you there? It could be the view.
Yeah, he was here earlier.
He's on my screen. I've asked him to unmute. He's kind of popped in and out.
We have that other letter.
Yes,
Yeah.
oh, yes, I should, Mike Murdoch, our fire chief, dropped in today and left a letter. That he has sent to the state in response to.
Hello, Frank.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good.
I enjoyed listening to your meeting and hopefully I didn't make any weird noises in it. So if I did, I apologize.
No, just a little bit of snoring.
Yeah. That's part of
So-
the best offer.
All right. So this is for the questionnaire, Frank, right?
Yes, it's the Act 250 questionnaire for municipal services. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, Frank, if you're aware of it, but our fire chief, Michael Murdoch, has sent you or is sending you this letter that he has come up with his concerns about the direction there that the or what you guys have laid out as far as what you want to do with the park.
Yes.
I think he has some very legitimate concerns here. And as far as myself goes there, I don't, I mean, I can agree a lot there with what Mr. Murdoch has to say in his particular letter to you. And I don't know if do you have that in front of you there, Frank?
I don't have it yet. So
Okay.
I'm operating a little blind here. So
Okay, all right. So.
but I can
don't know if
imagine
you-
but he's talked to me enough about it. I can pretty much imagine what he said. So yeah.
So one of the big concerns there is that, he does list here that there are 3 fish and wildlife accesses with distances of 1.3 miles to 2 miles from the tip of North Hero. So, and I'm sure that he brought that concern up with you there at one time there as far as trying to close that down or by narrowing the road to get emergency vehicles in and out of there. One of the other concerns here, so he has, after some research with widths varying from 12 to 20 feet, it's designed there for emergency vehicles, and I think in your guys' plan there, you had it down to 9 feet.
Yes,
that
9
correct?
feet, 9 feet width exceeds the maximum allowable width of the Fire Apparatus Manufacturing Association for all emergency vehicles.
Okay, and but that's just one way traffic in there and then out, so we know that that's a long road.
There are pull-offs associated, and it's actually a pathway that
Yeah.
can be driven on for utility access, but there are pullouts periodically for passing activity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I believe you'll be receiving a letter there from some adjoining neighbors there to the state parks.
They have
There's-
applied for, some neighbors have applied for party status with the Act 250
Yeah.
process. And
Yeah.
they haven't been rendered a decision yet, so.
Okay, so I have the feeling, well, I kind of know there that you'll be getting a letter from them also.
Yeah, they were asked to respond to, the commission asked them for information as well as us, including this questionnaire.
Right, so I guess one of my big questions here to ask you is saying, well, by taking a look at the topo maps. There's a number of beaver dams. That are situated along that one creek. Okay, a couple of them. Taking a look at the elevations there also, that creates this excess water being backed up and whatever. Now, I don't know if that's in your guys' plan here to use that entire area as a retention area for runoff or whatever, but it also creates an issue there that water, that watershed or whatever runs all the way to the south of that, all the way to North End Road West. Okay, and of course, we've had issues on one side of North End Road West there when we had some beavers there plugging up our culvert. That has since been taken care of until they come back. But anyway, so that was creating a big issue there with the farmer there that owns on the other side of the road, because when we release the water there, of course, it'd be washing into his field, you know. And he's aware that there are beaver dams along that creek, you know, so
Right.
I guess the question is to you is that whether or not the state is looking at addressing that issue there with these beaver dams, or is the intent to use that whole area excuse me, to use that whole area as a retention area? Just because all the roads there, all the campsites, everything like that is built up. And it's built up higher than the adjacent landowners' property. If you take a look at the topo there, they're at 103. Your back access road is at 104. And then if you go into other areas there, like where that wastewater area was there, actually the high point of that is at 111.
Yeah. That was designed to hold water in a wetland, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what, you know, if you guys are addressing that issue or not.
So if I can speak to that point specifically, the whole plan here is to free up the waters so that they can move where they're supposed to go. So you mentioned that back access road, which accesses the old wastewater treatment lagoon and spray fields. I don't know the exact number without having the plans up in front of me, so don't hold me to the exact number. But the whole idea is to actually breach that road at several locations to actually do the opposite of retain. It will actually connect the wetland portion behind that road to the rest of the wetland complex, so that water will actually freely move. I'll just call it down gradient. So that issue of the 104 level road will cease to be an issue, because we're going to break that road at several locations to allow water to pass from, I would call it, to the east of it to the west of it towards the lake. The lagoon itself will have to be breached as part of this project to eliminate its classification as a dam, because it is classified as a dam, because it theoretically retains water above the natural ground level next to it. So that'll be breached at a location to allow water to pass in and out of that. So there actually are no retention areas being constructed in this project, because we are removing a significant portion of the impervious surface We're actually removing enough so that it ceases being a 3-acre issue. We're gonna remove enough of the impervious surface that essentially localized drainage will take care of any kind of runoff treatment. So the rainwater won't collect anywhere to go to a retention area. So the water that falls on the 10-foot section of road will run off in that 10-foot section of road and will not be collected and gathered and retained anywhere. So we're actually restoring the natural wetland and floodplain activity at that area. Beaver control is not part of our plan because this is a construction plan. It's not an operations plan for wildlife control. That'd be a topic that would have to be taken up at a later time. That's not part of the Act 250 process at this juncture. So I hope that answers your concern regarding water movement. Our goal is actually to move water, have water move more freely in and out of the floodplain storage area, and have the wetlands move to their natural state by breaching those roads and creating connections between the two areas.
Okay, and these breaches there, I mean, are we looking at large breaches or are we looking at just, you know, I just worry about, you know, and I know how things fill up around here as far as sediment and whatever. I mean, we go through our town ditching here and there, you know.
Yeah. The whole idea is that there's enough space created for the water to flow that it's not like a channel, you know, so there's nothing to really sediment up because the water really wouldn't be moving, you know what I mean? It would just
Right.
find its level. It would be moving through the stream still. But the whole idea is to let the water go where it needs to go. And what we call them is grade dips. You know, essentially, so we're going to remove the road grade in a gradual manner, create a very wide bottom at original natural level opening, so that essentially restores the actual connectivity between the two sides of the road in a pretty wide manner.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, well, you know, I definitely would like to see there that all of these, these concerns here that the fire department has, that those are definitely addressed. And we have until the 20th here there for this questionnaire here or whatever, but I can also, I can get in contact there with Chief Murdoch and if there's anything else there that I have questions on or whatever there, then I'll be filling out the questionnaire and you know, putting that forward to you.
Yeah. I appreciate that greatly. So the Act 250 Commission asked that we request this municipal services or questionnaire, and also request that we reach out to Chief Murdoch and Grand Isle Rescue to have them do a project review letter, which is what Chief Murdoch will eventually send along. So that's the impetus of his response, was the request required by the Act 250 Commission. So,
okay.
yeah.
Now, when these concerns are addressed, what's the likelihood, I mean, whether or not they would tailor their course of action?
So that would be the commission that would have to decide that. I mean, we've spoken with Chief Murdoch several times. And we've expressed, you know, we actually widened the pathway from this original, I think, 8 feet to the 9 foot to accommodate that maximum width. That's standard for the National Association of Fire Apparatus Manufacturers. Fire Apparatus Manufacturers Association. We feel that that's sufficient to meet the needs of rescue out there. And that's why we kept the plan as it is, with the 9 feet, making the accommodation as well as a turnaround. The gate will have a Knox box or an access lock box, coordinated through the sheriff's department, similar to any other on-staff property. And what I would suggest that the North York think about is that this property will be very similar to what's occurring at Kneecap Bay. or the trails at Night Point. It's you park and you walk park. The intent is to create a walking park past the gate. So that's why the road is going to be removed. The asphalt will be reclaimed as base, and then a surfacing will be put on it that will be ADA accessible and will be pedestrian and bicycle or pedal craft or pedal powered vehicles. So we did the 9 feet, which we believe meets the requirements that would be necessary for rescue out there. There was a conversation about winter access, and currently road is not plowed for winter access. So there really is no change in operation for that park. If it's plowed by individuals that just take it upon themselves to drop their blade and go out there. That's not something we actively do, nor would we plan on doing that. So,
So
I just wanted to make those-
the gate would remain where it is?
the gate will be we're actually going to, if you're familiar with the park where there's the old Ranger House, the old contact station, the woodshed, the old entrance. We're actually going to remove all the structures except for the house, maybe the garage, but the woodshed, the contact station, the information, all that, those buildings are pretty much dilapidated at this point in time. They're all going. And we're going to create we're going to add some parking there. And the gate will actually be at the end of that parking area. So you'll be able to freely drive in, park, and then walk by the gate to walk into the park and walk down to the beach. The state of Vermont also has what's called OPDMD guidance, which other powered mobility devices, there's another initial in there, but and if someone who has a mobility limitation needs what's called other powered access down to the beach, and that can include a golf cart, a motorized wheelchair, a track chair. It can even include a vehicle. They can get a permit issued for that use. It's just simple registration online. They can get access through, figure out a way to get them access to the gate. And generally the rules are, as long as you operate the other powered device at the same speed as the other users, which means about 5 miles an hour, you can use that pathway to access the beach if you have a mobility limitation. So the park's really designed to still accommodate the use without having it open to vehicles all the time.
All right. Well, my main point on that was for the parking there, because I know our public works guy there in the wintertime would get very upset if people are parked alongside the road.
Oh, yeah.
To get
No.
into the park. So, but thank
Yeah,
you for answering.
Yeah.
I have a question. It says, does your municipality have the capacity to provide the following services without unreasonable burdens? Fire protection, police protection, rescue service, road maintenance, and solid waste disposal. My presumption is that because this is state property, that there is no intent to request that the town take over any future management of the provision of services that are outlined in that section. Is that correct?
Yeah, I interpret that question to mean, can your town roads sustain the traffic that this project would bring to it? And I think, and essentially the current Act 250 permit, it's permitted as a 120 site campground. So we're actually modifying the permit significantly downward. So the question would be, I can't remember the name of the road out there. I apologize for that. Would that road still be able to maintain the use to our gate, not necessarily within the park? I don't interpret that as anything saying that you would take over our park roads.
Okay, that'd be Lakeview Drive.
Lakeview Drive. Yeah, so can Lakeview Drive still sustain the traffic that this new permit would call for?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else from any of the board members?
Not for me.
I'm good.
Okay. I think we're all set there, Frank. I thank you
I
very much.
appreciate your time. So I'm gonna go watch a UVM soccer game here. So
There you go.
Cats go.
Yeah.
go Cats,
All
go.
right.
All
All
right,
right.
take care, everyone. Wonderful to talk with you. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. All right.
So do you want to provide, I'm assuming Carl would be who signs this? If we want to provide any guidance for how to complete it, or if you want he and I to work together on your
I trust
authorize,
Carl.
Thank you, Harry.
you want to authorize?
It's awfully bold.
He's the authorized signatory, isn't he?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, he's the equivalent to the town manager.
All right, yeah, get that.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting has been adjourned at 7:18 PM. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Now I gotta go.